Hello, I'm Diane from Millhouse Quilts, and I'm so excited about the quilt that you just saw. It's a pattern called Mesmerized by Basic Gray, and it has been one of my favorites. I love the 3D effect, the way the squares kind of overlap, and it's so simple to make, and you never quite have to make a whole square. Well, I had an assignment for Modern Club to make some made fabric out of scraps. So because I had just finished that Mesmerized sample, I was looking at a pile of those scraps. Now I will confess, I had a little bit more than I needed when I started, and I knew I had a little bit more, so I had free rein to go anywhere I wanted. What you have here is partial. I made something for Modern Club, and this is a little bit more what it was. But basically it's the idea of making fabric and then cutting it up and making something else out of it. So because it was Modern Club, I added some solids, and I added the white and the gray. This was the darkest solid gray. This is the white that's the background every other strip in the sample. And so that made this beautiful diamond in the middle. And then I went out, and at first it only went this far, and these four corners actually had this white in them with it's the same block, the dark gray and the white. And then when I decided I wanted it to be bigger, I decided I just wanted the white in the middle because I really like that diamond effect. So I picked out the white, and I found this gray crosshatch and put that with it and changed those corners, and then I went on to make more fabric, and I'm going to show you how I made the fabric for this one. I picked 5 of the light fabrics from the quilt and 5 of the darker fabrics, and I had pieces that were about 10 inches wide by 21 inches long. So if you imagine each of these that size, these are the 5 lights that I used, these are the 5 darks, and they're all in that quilt. I basically kicked out a lot of the solids that were in there. What I did was I stacked each of these on top of itself. So you can imagine there's 5 all neatly placed on top. And then because I have 5, I did 4 curvy cuts so that I had 5 sections. I kept this one the same. I took the top one and moved it down, 2 and moved it down, 3 and moved it down, so that when I sewed each one back together, I had 1 each of each of the 5 fabrics in each piece of fabric. Then I stacked those 5 on top of each other, exactly even, and I made 4 more curvy cuts. And I did the same thing where I rearranged 1 and then 2 and then 3, sewed those back together. So I ended up with, each piece is different, but this is 1 piece of the 5 lights after all the curvy cuts, and this is a piece of the darks after all the curvy cuts. Now what I had decided, my inspiration for this one that I showed you, it's a takeoff on the log cabin block, but because I had so many seam allowances in here, I didn't want to even think about cutting logs. So I made half square triangles because that's the image of the log cabin block is half light, half dark, which is the same as a half square triangle block. So I cut those into strips, and then I cut the strips into squares, which I cut in half, and I picked 2 up and made a block. And that is all the blocks in this quilt. Now, if you can see from this, there's a darker diamond that goes around the outside, but it's not complete on 2 of the sides. And my goal, if I have enough scraps, is to complete the dark, to do 2 more strips, 1 on the top, 1 on the bottom, so that I can complete that dark diamond all the way around. I don't know if I have enough, but I love the challenge. Now I'm going to lay this down so that I can point out a few more things. As I was doing this one, I knew I might run out of fabric, and I got just a little bit lazy. So if you look close, every now and then I have a half square triangle that is really 1 piece of fabric instead of all the made fabric. There's 1 there, there's 1 here, there's 1 here. But your eye doesn't see that as you look at this. I have told you I have all this fabric, all this motion going on. And your eye can read the light and the dark, and it can read the diamond shapes that are being formed. If you look real closely, you can see some of those, but at a glance or even sometimes at a close look, it's not obvious. So my goal, like I say, is to add one more row here so that I can complete the dark diamond, and one more row here to complete the dark so that it's a nice even piece. I know I can come close, hopefully close enough. If I can't do it, I'm going to leave it like this because I love it this way too. And I think that would be good. I have a darker plaid. I'm going to bind it in. I haven't used it yet. And I have some wonderful strips left, 2.5-inch strips. And I have another plan already with some of those strips. So hopefully I've inspired you to make some fabric, not be afraid of anything. This has a lot of seam allowance, which you just kind of deal with. You may like it, you may not, but just sew it. I told John not to come too close because some of my seams aren't even, but I don't care, it's the way it is. So, happy quilting from Millhouse Quilts.